So, most of us have spent most of our lives running away from monsters. That's basically the gist of a lot of the stories that I've heard tonight. And I am no exception. I spent most of my life running away from monsters and looking for God. When I was very small, I lived in abject poverty. I remember laying in bed with my mom and watching people breaking into our apartment while we were in bed, and running to my grandfather, spending the night with him. When I was a little bit older, I spent most of my childhood running away from the monster that consumed my dad, having PTSD and brain injury from World War II. Again, running to my grandfather. He was basically God. When I was 9, I spent most of September praying to an invisible sky god to save my grandfather. And he didn't answer. In school, I was that kid. I was the kid who, in 6th grade nature camp, the day one, we're sitting in a field, can't see without my glasses one bit. We're sitting in a field, I sneeze, bump my face against my knee, and break my glasses. I was that kid. I was in love with Tony Manos, and in 5th grade I sent him a Valentine at the Valentine's Day party, and everybody gathered around to look and laugh at that Valentine. And then the next day, on the bathroom wall was written, "I love Tony Manos," signed Jennifer H. And I got called down to the principal's office. The principal said, "You didn't write that on the bathroom wall, did you?" Crying, "No, I didn't." And then the next day, we had a school assembly for the 5th graders with the principal. 5th graders, by the way, are too young to be dating. That's what the principal informed us of that day. I'm sure it was entirely because of that situation. I was that kid. And so, of course, I went to a Baptist church. I went to Awana. Despite my parents' lack of church attendance, I was searching desperately for God. I joined a Christian dance company. I went to a Baptist horse camp. Skyview Ranch Sisters. Oh yeah, good stuff. Whenever we had a problem, we would pray it out. And then when I got older, I decided, fuck God. God hates me, I hate God. And so I wanted to die. And I also spent a total of about a month in a mental hospital. 2 weeks. After 2 weeks in the mental hospital, though, I found God through the love of my life, another patient on floor 7 of Mercy Medical Center. He was my neighbor, too. Coincidence. And we were madly in love. And he was my savior. And then he killed himself. And so I spent another 2 weeks in the mental ward, looking for God again. And then I, again, decided, fuck God. And then I went to college. I struggled through life. My dad died. My mom had a mastectomy. I had broken my ankle and had had surgery, and was trying to get through a full semester my junior year, and in Spanish 3, which is miserable if you don't take on to languages very easily. I know, Nima, you're learning new languages it's no big deal. But for those of us who don't grasp that stuff well, it's miserable. So I was crying over my homework, not knowing how how I was going to make it through when there was a knock on my door. I answered the door, and there was a nice-looking man in a suit. He said, "I've come to tell you of the good news." I said, "There is no good news. What are you talking about?" And he said, No. I've come to share good news with you. Somebody who's going to take care of us." Well, there's nobody that's going to take care of us. He said, "No, I want to talk to you about the floods and the death and the misery that we experience in life." Population control slammed the door. I was mad, on crutches, miserable. And then I stood there on the other side of the door for a full minute, thinking about how lonely I was. And so I opened the door again. And there he was! He was just standing there as if he knew that I was going to open that door. And I said, "Come on in." So for the next year, I was a Jehovah's Witness. That was fun. After about a year, I realized, wow, these people are brainwashy. And so I decided I was not a Jehovah's Witness anymore. Then I joined my local UCC and became a youth group leader. Yeah, I was a youth group leader, guys. I was the coolest damn youth group leader you have ever seen. I actually became the youth group leader after joining the church. I had been a member of the church for about 2 weeks, and I agreed to teach the little baby Sunday school class. Because I knew so much biblically. I grew up a Baptist and became a Jehovah's Witness. I knew the Bible inside and out, forwards and backwards. So of course I will teach these babies Bible school. So I agreed to that, and I was on my way down to my first week of Sunday school when the youth group leader was chasing a young girl down the hall saying, "Come back here, you little shit!" And the teenager was running down the hall with a big smirk on her face, like, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." And then the next Sunday, I got called into consistory, and they said, "Could you be the youth group leader and teach that age Sunday school?" I said, "Sure, I'll do it." So it was fun. We had a really good time, actually. The problems that other people were having with these kids was just because they couldn't connect with them. But I was looking for God there. Still didn't find God, though. Ultimately, I spent time looking for God with a witch. I spent time looking for God within myself, and still running away from all the monsters in my life. And then I got diagnosed with a monster that I could not run away from, a monster that was in my body. Most of you know that I have MS. For those of you who don't, I have multiple sclerosis. When I first was diagnosed, I had no symptoms, and so they decided not to treat. But after the first year, I started developing really severe symptoms. About 4 years ago, I could not walk without a cane. I couldn't hold a conversation. I really struggled. I had to have steroid treatments every time I had what they call a relapse, which is basically when inflammation gets bad and your immune system starts eating your brain and scar tissue starts expanding. They give you steroid treatments to try to stop it. Now, a steroid treatment consists of 3 days of 1,000 milligrams of solumedrol each day in an IV. Now, if anybody's ever had a pill pack for poison ivy, that's 40 milligrams over 5 days. So 1,000 milligrams every day for 3 days in an IV, and then they taper you off for the next month and wean you down. Now, if you've had a pill pack for poison ivy, you know how angry 40 milligrams makes you. 1,000 milligrams turns you into the monster that you never wanted to be. They send you home with a phone number for your family to call in case things go poorly. which things inevitably go poorly, but never poorly enough for your family to be like, okay, that's it, you're crazy, you're going away. But I remember most of the time when I knew I was going to have a steroid treatment, I would say to McCartney, I'm sorry, Mommy's going away for a while, and I'm sorry for what's going to come because I really have no control. And I struggled so hard to keep control. I just remember not even knowing who I was and going into horrible rages and starting to cry as I'm in the rage. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't help it. Shut up! And I struggled, and I struggled, and I fought. And after 2 years, the doctors said, you know what, the meds you're taking aren't really working. We're going to have to try something else. So they decided that they wanted to put me on this medication called Jilly, which you have to start in the hospital because it could stop your heart. And then after that, your heart will probably never operate at full capacity again. It confines all of your T cells to your lymph nodes so that they can't cross the blood-brain barrier and eat your nervous system. It also costs $48,000 a year. Back to Amber's point, let's pass some fucking health insurance acts. Let's get people's health care paid for. So I decided that's bullshit, there is no God, I'm going to go see an acupuncture doctor. And I did. I saw an acupuncture doctor, and we worked together for the next year, which it was a miserable year, because on top of my illness now, and on top of not being able to walk and not being able to hold a conversation, I also had to give up sugar, gluten, dairy, salt, soy, everything, alcohol, caffeine, tobacco, everything that brought me joy, I had to give up and also start exercising. Right? Yeah, that's like the icing on the cake right there, right? But I did it because it was better than taking steroids, and it was better than getting cancer because my T cells never left my lymph nodes. It was better than going blind because the medication that I was taking was eating my retinas. I did it. And it was at that point, now that I'm walking, now that I'm able to stand here and have a conversation, now that I can dance again, now that I can do all the things, or at least most of the things that I could do before I got diagnosed with MS, I still have symptoms, yes, but I can still function. Now that I'm doing those things, after I realized that I could bring myself to do those things, I realized that I am God. God is in me. And then I moved to Akron. And I met all of you wonderful people, and you know what? You guys are the divine. The divine is in every single one of you. All the artists, all the people who come up here and bare their souls and empty themselves out every day. All the people who work hard to make the world a better place. You guys are the divine. Thank you.